good. Yay. Things are thinging. I like when things do things. Yeah, we're good here. Boom. Double check here. Boom. Yay. Let me grab this and send these. Bam. Huzzah. Alrighty. Let's do all our double and triple and octuple and quadruple and other ruple checkings. Yeah, it looks like we're good. Yay. I love this theme. It is so pleasant. Yeah, I like this song. Which is great, because we're not going to be, turning it off, because we're doing a tier list today. You know, my phone magic has not phone magicked for the stream, but it is on. I can see it. I can see myself. I can touch myself. There it goes. Took long enough. Yep. There we are. Oh, also, because YouTube is silly and didn't tell me, I want to say thank you, Gohan Mugen fan, for subscribing. It literally didn't tell me during the stream yesterday, but I got the notification for it. Thank you. YouTube is silly. Now you may or may not be able to tell that my head is fucking turbo exploding right now. Because I'm not allowed to sleep, I guess. So it will take a while for the Excedrin to kick in. But thankfully, I'm not doing anything brain intensive. You know, Elena theme, I feel the beats in my head. I feel the beats in my head a little too much right now. You know, I did watch the Street Fighter 6 Elena trailer. But, I know Street Fighter 6 gives everyone, like, really different themes. So, sadly, it's probably not going to be this song that she has in that game. Which is kind of unfortunate. I don't know. I don't know if I've actually mentioned this on stream before. I'm not really a trailer watcher. And unlike a lot of people, I apparently have, like, no problem avoiding areas of the internet that talk about the game I'm interested in. So, I just kind of don't watch things when I'm, like, interested in a game until I, like, have access to it and I'm playing it. I don't know why that's so hard for everyone else. I don't get it. Yo, yay! My favorite town theme from Monster Hunter. Alrighty. Let's get to it, because I would like to finish washing the dishes, get something to eat, and then actually try and lay down and get some sleep. Today... Bam. This is a tier list. These are weapons, and down there are classes. For Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, as you might guess by the name, is a survivor game, a horde shooter as I like to call, based on Deep Rock Galactic. I know, what a novel concept, what an intriguing name. It almost tells you what the game is. However, that being said, I think it is one of the best games of the genre. I think the game is phenomenally balanced. Sort of, yeah. I think Deep Rock Galactic Survivor is phenomenally balanced, just like the actual game. I think its difficulty is really good. It's a lot harder than other Survivor clones, but I appreciate that because it's harder for good reasons. I agree. This is my favorite Monster Hunter Village theme. Let me grab that. Yeah, I recently finished getting all of the weapons and classes tied with Kokoto. I like Kokotos too. I recently finished getting all the weapons and classes in Deep Rock Galactic Survivor to maximum level, which is Hazard 5. And let me tell you, it was quite an enlightening experience. And that's putting it mildly. You know, maybe one day I should... You know, me and Fox have been talking about wanting to play OG Deep Rock Galactic every once in a while, because we like that game. We haven't played it in a bit, but we do like it. It's funny, though. Like, OG Deep Rock Galactic is a game that, like... It's a game that we mod quite a bit. Let me put it that way. Like, we like it, but there's, like, a lot of little things that annoy us about it that we change. But it is fun. Anyway, we're not here to talk about OG. We're here to talk about Survivor. And all the weapons in Survivor, and all the stuff they do, and all the fun diddly-un things, and how ridiculous they are, and all that jazz. So let's talk about them. Let me go and grab that. There we go. So I have everything all nice and listed out in front of me. There we go. Yay. Alrighty. So yeah, let's just go in order. Let's start talking about Deep Rock Galactic Survivor's weapons. And as I talk about them, this will lead me to explain a lot of things about the game. And go over some certain things. I was considering changing the tier list. But honestly, I think this is fine. And that's mostly because the way this game works on a general basis, because you have multiple weapons at once. You have 4 weapons at once in this game. And even the worst ones can still be marginally useful in certain ways. So there's not that many terrible ones. I feel the need to say that right off rip. But let's get into it. Our first weapon here is the acid grenade. Oh, and one other important thing as I go into this. We're going over these weapons. Yay! Essentially, for the most part, as in a vacuum as possible. Like, how happy are you to see this weapon when you're playing a run? Actually, is the volume fine on this one? Yeah, it's a little fine. Yeah, it's fine. Alright. Yeah. It's basically, like, how happy are you to see this weapon when you're on a run, right? Like, are you excited to see this weapon? Do you, like, really want this weapon? That's what we're going off of, right? How helpful is this weapon to you in a run? And this is the acid grenade. Acid grenades... Okay, so the acid element, let's start there, is a good start. Acid in Deep Rock Galactic increases the amount of damage your opponent takes the more acid stacks they have on enemies. How elemental weapons work is when you hit an enemy, they will apply a certain number of their element based on your potency stat. And the more you hit them with that element, the more they will build, and the more that element's effect will happen on that enemy. Acid makes that enemy take increased damage the more acid stacks they have, which is insanely good. The problem with the acid grenade is that it's a grenade. Grenades are funky because they have a delay before they explode, which is not ideal. Not ideal in the slightest, and it is very annoying. It often means that if an enemy is fast enough, or if there's enough enemy clusters, you can end up not hitting what you want to hit with grenades in certain time, because the enemy will just move past their grenade, unless you have enough explosive radius, which can be quite annoying if you get it with other weapons that are not explosives, because you're probably not building into explosive radius. Because of that, a lot of the grenades suffer for basically that same reason, and what would be good grenades and good weapons end up feeling not as good, because in practice, they end up missing targets more often than not, which is not a great feeling. Leaving behind puddles of acid is still insanely useful, so we're going to put this in A. This gets salvaged because it has basically the best element in the game. That's my best feeling on this. Up next, that is the Thunderhead Autocannon, and I like how that quickly... This is the best weapon in the game. Full stop, no thought, no hesitation. The Thunderhead Autocannon is the strongest weapon in the game. This weapon, much like base DRG, fires off really heavy fucking bullets at your enemies. Except, they're really, really heavy fucking bullets, and they do a lot of damage even without damage upgrades. A lot of damage without damage upgrades. Like, a lot of, like, a really, like, an obscene amount of damage without damage upgrades. This thing will shred enemies. Anything off to your side that was remotely a problem is not a problem anymore. They're gone, and you're gonna feel happy about it. This thing's absurd. The only bad thing about this is that it's only available to the gunner. That's the only thing that's stopping me from giving this thing its own tier. That's it. Like, that's really it. I really can't explain anything else about it, because the best thing about it is the simplest thing about it. It does a shit ton of damage. Just an absurd amount of damage. It's really ridiculous. And then, of course, all that damage only gets better when you actually start getting more damage upgrades. And fire rate and reload speed. Yeah, that's the one maybe downside, is a heavy weapon with a lot of, like, with really bad reload speed, but that's fixable. That's a really fixable problem, right? The fundamental issues with this gun have nothing to do with how the gun performs. It's all things that can be worked around. Yeah, this thing's dumb, but I love it. Up next, we have the boomstick. The good old double barrel boomstick. I think This is a good weapon. I don't think it's a fantastic weapon, but I think it's a good weapon. It has good damage. It has good reload speed. It has 2 rounds, which can get kind of annoying sometimes, but if you choose to get the clip up upgrade, it'll get 4. So there's that. Alternatively, you can get ooh, yay. The final overclock, which gets it the big boy, the big old slug round, which is also an option, or double pellets, which is generally my preferred option, is double pellets on most of the shotguns. But either of those is also good. One of the most useful things about this is the elements it has access to. None of them are acid. Instead, you have shock and you have cryo. Cryo slows enemies down up to a critical mass where they will freeze solid, which is really good. And shock gives you additive crit chance the more shock stacks is on an enemy, which is not as good, but if you have one shock weapon is fine, and it being your main weapon is also fine. And the main reason I find it more useful on this weapon, as opposed to a lot of other weapons that are innately shock, is I feel a lot of the weapons that are innately shock have, like, just lower damage because they're innately shock. I don't know if it's just my imagination, or if it's just a feeling thing. It probably is, but considering I, just recently finished getting these things to max, it feels like all of the shock weapons just have lower damage to compensate for the fact that they have innate shock, which is really bad. It's really, really bad. It doesn't feel good. This weapon doesn't have that problem because it starts out with raw damage. And you can choose to make it either shock if you want the increased damage, or cryo if you want the CC. On top of the fact that you can also get knockback on its overclocks, which is really good. It's a good weapon. It's really good. Nice, solid, good damage, really versatile. It's good. Up next, the Breach Cutter. Alrighty, now I get to talk about plasma weapons. Plasma weapons in Survivor are weird. So I didn't mention plasma when I was talking about the other elements, and that's because plasma is essentially a second raw type. Plasma doesn't have an elemental damaging effect like the other ones do, or any of that. Instead, plasma weapons innately bounce off of surfaces and targets once they're done piercing targets. And I think the developers tried to balance them around that fact a little too hard. I feel like most of the plasma weapons have worse damage overall because the developers intended for you to be bouncing off of things in order to maximize their damage potential, which causes issues. Boop. It causes issue. That one is really loud. It causes issues. And the main reason it causes issues is because this is Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. One of the good things about this game is the fact that it forces movement. A big problem with a lot of horde shooters is that if you get strong enough, you eventually just end up staying still and just waiting for enemies to come to you so you can kill them. This game doesn't do that because it makes you mine materials. You need to mine materials in order to get currency to get your upgrades at the end of each stage, which is really important. So you're moving a lot, and more importantly, you're mining walls. You're mining walls a lot. When elite tier and higher enemies are coming towards you, they're also mining walls, which means at a certain point, there's just going to be less walls, which means there's going to be less surfaces for your plasma weapons to bounce off of. It creates a really big problem because these weapons just don't work with how the game works. That's my biggest problem with them. I think okay, you know what it is? There's another issue, actually. A lot of plasma weapons start with plasma, which is fine, right? They're plasma. Of course they start with plasma. But they can also get another element, and they get all kinds of different elements. So, a big problem with that is how the game, how the game scales its damage. Long story short, when you're building for weapons and you're getting your upgrades to build your weapons, you have one of two damage paths. You can go damage over time, or you can go crit. The only thing that both of those want is base damage. If you're building crit, you're getting base damage, you're getting critical hit chance, and you're getting critical hit damage upgrades. If you're building dot, you're getting damage over time effect, and you're getting potency, which increases the amount of dot stacks that get built on an enemy. If your weapon can get a damaging, or actually any element really, and it doesn't have one innately, damage over time effects don't appear until you have something that actually benefits it, which makes perfect sense. But a big problem with that when it comes to the plasma weapons is sometimes you just want the damage over time effects because the base weapon is that bad, and you can't really start building damage over time effects until you get the element. Which essentially, delays how long it takes for you to start building that weapon up the way you want to. Which is not a good feeling, especially if that's basically your only choice for that weapon. It feels really bad if that's the only thing you can do. Or the worst, the most ideal thing you can do. Which ends up being the case most of the time. Which feels really bad. So, those are the issues with plasma weapons. And what determines whether a plasma weapon will be good or not is how ignorable those problems are before you get to the point where you can start working around them. So the breach cutter fires off charged plasma balls that are tethered to each other. They have big old lines in between all of them. It hits semi-frequently enough. You can shoot out a large number of said balls. So you got a large number of tethers. It can get, I believe, cryo, shock, and fire, if I remember correctly, which are all pretty good. This is a weapon you generally want to see later, and you want, cryo in order to freeze enemies with, I think. This isn't really a weapon you want to see early. I am feeling a B on the breach cutter. It is fine. It doesn't suffer as badly as other cryo weapons for the issues cryo weapons have, because there will be worse ones. There absolutely will be worse ones. Up next, the BRT-7 burst gun. This is, I believe, one of the gunner's starter weapons. It shoots in 4 directions. shoots decently in 4 directions, has about average damage, or slightly above average damage for handgun, which is pretty good. If I remember correctly, it can get a few elements via overclocks, can get good damage from its overclocks. Gets the spiral shot upgrade from its final overclock, which is always better than the 8-way shot for some fucking reason. That always confused me. The 8-way shot is really weird, because spiral is always better. I'm not sure. I think they should really do something about that, because you basically always want spiral. 8-way doesn't really have an advantage over spiral. But yeah, this weapon is fine. It's fine. Oh, these are not ordered. I forgot to mention that. None of these are ordered. But yeah, this weapon's fine. It's a decent starter weapon. Right? You know, it's pretty good throughout. You can get different supporting elements or base elements. You don't mind the elemental delay for this as much as other ones, because a big problem a lot of other plasma weapons have, as opposed to, say, kinetic weapons, is a lot of plasma weapons don't get fire rate upgrades because they tend to have low clip sizes. Fire rate is really good for applying your elemental effect to enemies, because you hit them more, so they get the status more. So, pretty solid. Up next is the coil gun. The coil gun shoots off a railgun shot that essentially hovers in place for a while and essentially does dot damage. It does kinetic dot damage as long as that's there. If enemies are touching it, they'll take damage until the coil goes away, which is really good. However, the thing that makes this weapon really, really good is, I think this is the best weapon for clearing terrain. There are several weapons in the game that have an overclock that let you do damage to terrain. And I think this one is the best at it. And I think this one is the best at it because that dot essentially multi-hits most terrains. It gets multiple additional beams, so you spread out the number of beams you're shooting to hit more terrain a lot easier than a lot of other weapons that can destroy terrain. The weapon does decent damage, which is fine, but that's not why I think it's good. I think it's good because clearing out terrain in this game is super important. You clear out minerals faster, you give yourself more maneuverability. You're just allowing yourself much more safety, essentially, if you can clear out terrain as fast as possible. So yeah, I think the coil gun is really good because of that and that alone. But even if we were to ignore that, it does decent damage. It's fine. But it's definitely the terrain clearing that bumps it up. Up next, the Bulldog Pistol. This one, I think, is just a bit better than the Burst Pistol for the gunner because it just does more damage. I think it's just a tad more synergistic with what the gunner wants to do. You're just hitting harder. Yeah, it's basically that. You're just hitting harder. You're hitting harder, and that matters just a bit more, especially during higher hazards, and especially early on. You're just chunking guys a lot better. Being able to kill more enemies early is a lot more important than being able to kill more enemies later, because you're allowing yourself that breathing room to essentially scale into late game. A big problem with a lot of other weapons that would have potentially been fine is that, man, it takes them so long to get to that point where you feel you're comfortable. But this one, it doesn't really feel that way. You're chunking guys really hard, really early. You're happy that this is one of the starting weapons with you. You chunk them away. It can also get elements, particularly fire, and that's actually really good for this weapon. Because one of the things that affects dot damage is your weapon's base damage. So the higher your base damage, the better your dot damage. And this has really heavy base damage for a starter weapon. So even if you don't end up getting too many damage increases before you get that fire upgrade, it still feels pretty good. Because you still have enough base damage to burn enemies. Which is nice, because it means it segues into the rest of your build if you decide to go into fire. And if you don't decide to go into fire, then just don't pick fire and just be happy with your high base damage and start chunking away guys with the crit. It's really nice. Alrighty, up next, the Cryo Cannon. Oh, the Cryo Cannon. Is this our first Cryo innate weapon? Yes, it is. The Cryo Cannon is pretty good. So, as you might imagine, Cryo is one of the best things for crowd control. Being able to freeze enemies solid and slow enemies away is really good. Being able to freeze enemies around you if they get close enough, and essentially is essentially a fuck around and find out for anything that gets close enough. Cryo is good. A weapon that constantly applies cryo to enemies around you, as it is a beam that constantly rotates around you, is really good. Being able to get more beams via its overclock is really nice. One of its overclocks allows you to do burn damage, which is also really nice, because that means you're stacking burn with the rest of your fire weapons, which is really good. If you're not the driller and you're not using dot, it's still good because it's just a good CC weapon. Being able to freeze enemies solid is just good. And it has really good coverage, so it's a good weapon. It's not a base weapon, I would say. Okay, so quantifying weapons is a little weird in this game. Because again, the whole thing behind how these weapons work is that you're trying to synergize them together. You're trying to, hope for the best as you're playing along in a run and essentially get weapons that all synergize in a certain way that want to help you. And the Cryo Cannon is really good because it's essentially can fit into any build, which is really nice. Up next, the Crisper Flamethrower. Okay. I'm a driller main. I'm a driller main in the base game, and I'm a driller main in Survivor. And this might abso-fucking-lutely be my bias talking, but god damn it, I love this thing. The Crisper Flamethrower is another, just, as you might imagine by the name, a fucking flamethrower. And damn it, it's a really good flamethrower. And I like really good video game flamethrowers. It will constantly apply fire to any motherfucker that decides to get close enough to find out. And it's really good at it. It's really, really good at it. You get multiple overclocks that affect different things, whether it's better damage, more range, more lifetime so you can burn more motherfuckers on one clip, or my personal favorite, more beams so you can apply more fire to more motherfuckers. It even has a sort of kind of sticky flame attachment that leaves behind fire trails, just like the base game. I love this thing. I love it so much. Up next, the Cryo Drone. So, we get to talk about our drones. Drones are another set of weapons. However, as opposed to the grenades, I like the drones a lot more than the grenades. And that's essentially because they're not inhibited by any kind of delay. The drones will essentially fly around you, and two of them, if I remember correctly, the direct damage ones, the fire and acid ones, will fly towards enemies and essentially constantly attack that enemy and constantly apply their element to that enemy, which is really good. The more assisted ones, like the Cryo Drone and the Shock Drone, will constantly fly around you, but there is an overclock that makes them fly towards enemies. It kind of sucks to have to get an overclock to do that. I kind of wish they all just fly towards enemies initially, but that's neither here nor there. Because of that, the drones are essentially constantly applying the elemental effect to the enemy, which is really good. Even better, in a recent update where they changed a lot of overclocks and buffed a lot of overclocks, they changed one of the overclocks for the drones. The drones have a new overclock, basically, where the lifetime stat, which affects things that are constantly active, like drones, like beams, and like constructs, which drones are, and affect them inversely. So now, they will have less... what the fuck? Get out of here, Streambot. Fucking involved Pyles. Involve these nuts. Bam. So now the drones will have less lifetime. They are now inversely affected by lifetime, so the more lifetime you have, the shorter they last. In exchange, when they're at the end of their lifetime, they fucking explode and now leave an area of constant damage. I love this theme. I think I have to skip it because lyrics are funny, but I do love that theme. So now, whenever your drone is at the end of its lifespan, it explodes and leaves behind an area of that element. So you're now leaving behind a constant area of cryo when the drone dies, which is really good. And that's better than the grenades because it's going directly to the enemies. It's hovering over the enemy until it dies. And once that enemy dies, it will just go towards the next enemy. Cryo Drone is really good. You are happy when you see this. Now, Cryo Grenade, on the other hand. So the big thing with the grenades is, as I mentioned before, the grenades essentially have a delay, a fire delay before they go off, which feels really bad. And that makes what would have been otherwise good weapons feel a lot worse most of the time because of that delay. And I feel that way especially with things that are supposed to CC opponents. Having a delay on your crowd control is not a good feeling, and because of that, I have to put the cryo grenade lower than the acid grenade because it feels substantially worse. It just doesn't feel as good. Oh, yay. It's just not a good feeling when what is supposed to be a core CC weapon essentially ends up missing on your opponent because of explosion delay. I really think explosive radius or something needs to affect explosive delay for these weapons. Because they feel really bad because they just don't explode fast enough. They don't feel awful. Like, there are certainly times where things will feel worse, but not having that immediacy of the effect because it's a grenade makes it less valuable than a lot of other weapons. Up next, the PGL grenade launcher. So I like this weapon. I think this weapon's alright. Explosive weapons are kind of weird. They're a little weird. I personally feel like a lot of explosive weapons have lower base damage to compensate for the fact that they're hitting multiple targets at once. Which makes sense. But I do wish they were just a tad higher initially. Like, they scale pretty well after you get all your damage, but the earliness doesn't feel particularly good. But that makes sense because they're meant to be AoE weapons, right? You don't want your AoE weapons to necessarily be great at single target, but it doesn't feel good enough. But I do think this weapon's fine. It does good damage. I think most explosive weapons, this one included, can also get terrain destruction, which is really nice. Yeah, I just think this weapon's fine. I don't think it's bad, I just think it's fine. Up next, the Drac Plasma Carbine. Is this... No, you know what? This is also just fine. I think it's debatably the best plasma weapon. But not by much. Not enough to put it in a different tier over the Shard Refractor, but I think it's fine. I think the fact is, this weapon, more than any of the other plasma weapons, functions like a regular weapon. It has good clip size, it has decent damage, it has the different elements that it has access to. You can build crit, I think you can build dot. I think this one also has fire attached to it, which if it doesn't have fire or acid, you probably don't want to be building dot damage. It's fine, but it's just better than the other plasma weapons because it doesn't fire differently. It doesn't have a weird clip size. Its damage isn't lower because it's not really trying to bounce off of other things. It just can, which makes it feel a lot better than the other ones, but not enough to put it in a tier higher. Electric Drone. Electric Drone is pretty good. Yeah, electric isn't as good as the other elements, I personally feel. Like, don't get it twisted. If you're building crit, you do want an electric weapon. But the fact is, like, it doesn't feel as good as the other elements because crit just simply needs more to feel as impactful. As I mentioned before, but I'll mention it again here now that we're at a dedicated shock weapon. Shock will additively apply critical hit chance to that enemy. And I thought it didn't apply past 100%. I was incorrect. It does apply past 100%, which is nice, but because it's additive, it doesn't apply crit chance fast enough, it feels like. Which is quite odd. How critical hits work in this game is you can build up to 100% crit, but you can build past 100% crit. And essentially deal extra crits based on your critical hit damage stat when you go past that. Which is strong, right? It's really good. And you can end up doing some pretty absurd damage with things. But I feel like electricity just doesn't build enough crit fast enough. That's my feeling. I think it's kind of hard too, because hold on, let me do a double check real quick. Boop. Ah. Do 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 do. Okay, if the Deep Rock Galactic Survivor Wikipedia is correct and up to date, every stack of electric damage on an enemy adds 0.5% chance to critical hit an enemy, up to a maximum of 100%, which requires 200 stacks. So, you don't... Okay, so basically you can only add... Oh, hold on. But yeah, because shock basically only adds another 100% and doesn't go further than that, it essentially becomes redundant, because you could just get enough base critical hit chance. Unless you're applying your electric damage fast enough, which, don't get it twisted, like, a lot of these, they do okay. Like, they're not bad, it's just that shock in a vacuum is just doesn't feel like it's doing as much as the other elements, which is why I think I'm gonna put the shock drone in B. I generally feel, and that's ignoring the fact that a lot of shock innate weapons are weaker to compensate for the fact that they're shock. If your weapon is not shock but can get shock via an overclock, it genuinely feels better than having a shock weapon most of the time. Which is weird. I don't think it should be that way. I think a weapon that has a dedicated element should be better at applying that element to enemies than one that can get one via an overclock. Yeah. Up next, the experimental plasma charger. This is unquestionably, undeniably, without hesitation, the worst weapon in the game. This weapon fucking sucks. Oh, wait, hold on. Since this popped up in the shuffle, I'm going to do myself a favor, and we're going to go over here, we're going to go over there. Doo-doo. Boop-boop-boop-boop. Boom. 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 This is probably my favorite OC Remix song. Which, speaking of, I love OC Remix. If you haven't checked out OC Remix, I would recommend it. It is essentially a big collective of musicians and remixers for video game music, and it's pretty good. And they let you use their music in your videos, which is really nice, as long as you just link to the original song, which I will do literally right now, because if not, I will forget it, because I will fall asleep later because of my fucking migraine. So yeah, this is 50 Rings to Ride. Which, as I mentioned, is probably my favorite OC Remix song. I love this song so much. Do 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 do. Ah. Do 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 do. There we go. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. This might make you miss the notification. Oh no! That's fine. Oh, you came in just in time! You came in just in time to hear me talk shit about the experimental plasma charger and why it fucking sucks! So don't worry. Oh boy, where do I fucking begin with this thing? Alrighty, 1, it's a plasma weapon. And it has the aforementioned issues we already talked about with plasma weapons. Actually, no. It has an even worse issue. Because there's a particular thing about plasma weapons where I feel so many of them would be better if they either had bigger clip sizes or a clip size of 1. So many of them have either 2 or 3 or 4 or some fucking weird single digit number and no fire rate increases. Which is a pain in the ass. It sucks so much for that. The main reason I think that's so bad is because if they could at least have higher clip sizes, then the developers would probably give them more fire rate, meaning they can actually shoot decently, or if they have a clip size of 1, the fire rate essentially becomes the reload speed, which means it can shoot faster. Most plasma weapons don't fucking shoot fast. So they're essentially locked to whatever fucking fire rate the game decides to give them, which in this thing's case is the speed of slugfuck. I fucking hate it. I fucking hate it a lot. So, what does this thing do, right? Because I just talked about what the fucking statistical problem with that thing. It has the same statistical problem as all the other plasma weapons, where it has fucking dick for damage because they intend for you to bounce it off of multiple things. Well, you know how the shard diffractor shoots out plasma balls that are tethered together? This thing just shoots out a singular plasma ball. It is the same weapon, except worse. It shoots one fucking ball of plasma. Okay, you know, it sucks that it's not a big old chain to hit multiple enemies at once, but surely it can be better than that, right? Well, what elements does it have? Well, it has shock, which we mentioned before isn't particularly great. And it's really bad at applying shock because of its poor fire rate. And it has cryo, which is definitely better, I think, as shock. Because that means, hey, you can potentially use this thing as a decent CC weapon, right? Especially because one of its overclocks gives the plasma balls a vacuum effect when they're flying towards enemies. So that seems pretty good, right? No! No, it's not. Because literally every fucking cryo weapon that's above this thing is better because it's just better at applying cryo. Dude, the boomstick is better at CCing enemies because of its knockback. This thing sucks at CCing enemies, and that's basically the only thing it's good for. It has low damage, it has an awkward stat spread, the fucking overclocks basically do nothing for it. It's bad. It's really bad. It's really, really, really bad. Like, genuinely, there are joke weapons in video games that are better than this. It's just not good. It's, like, I would literally rather get any other weapon for any purpose than this one. It's terrible. Oh yeah, let me fucking adjust my volume now. We had a song on earlier that was really loud, so I had to lower that. Actually, you know what? Matter of fact, let me drink this, refill my water. We will come back in a moment.
Yes.
Gotta skip that one, unfortunately.
Time to get
Hey!
romantic.
I said skip! Bat! Yay! Alrighty. Yeah, let me go refill this. I'll be back really quick. See, I told you I would be quick. Yeah. I also went to grab a snack because I have not eaten. I did not sleep that well and I have not eaten yet, so you know, that's fun. But I'll be alright. I will make some actual food later, but for now, let me just grab one of these. I mentioned before, I hate eating on stream. I don't know why. I don't like the fact that people, like, know I'm eating. I don't know why it bothers me. Like, I don't want to eat in front of people. Alrighty. Our next weapon... Actually, hold on. I gotta adjust my camera again. Shouldn't have to. Alright. Anyway, our next weapon. Fire drone. So, Fire Drone essentially has all the aforementioned benefits of the previous drones, except instead of being cryo or shock, it is fire. So, because of that, I think it's really good. I don't think it's necessarily fantastic at applying fire, but it is really good. There are definitely going to be weapons that are just better at applying fire, which is why I'm not going to put it in S. But it is very good. You are happy to see this. Because constantly applying a fire dot to enemies, and especially with the new overclock change that lets them explode and deal a big ol' area of fire, consistent dot application is really good, and this helps with that so much. Up next, the GK2. This weapon is also pretty good. Does decent damage, has a pretty good clip size, has a good fire rate, has really good overclocks. Where you can either buff its damage, where a lot of them buff its damage in very particular ways. It's one of the weapons that has the favorite. Actually, wait, come to think of it, I'm pretty sure the favorite and the sidearms. Actually, I don't know how those interact. Let me double check. See, good thing I kept this open. Let's go do some reading. Let's see, bam. Okay, so the favorite affects different weapons in different ways. For the GK2 in particular, it's 100% damage and 100% reload speed for making your other weapons 30% worse. 30% less damage, 30% reload speed. Those are all multiplicative, by the way. And you know, I think they changed the favorites for a lot of weapons. And it's good. It's just good, right? I can't really complain about this weapon. It's just a solid weapon. You're happy that this is a starter weapon. I can say that much, right? It's just good. It can get either electric or cryo as an element overclock, and both of those are also pretty good. Like I said, you don't necessarily want a dedicated shock weapon, but the fact that your starter weapon can essentially become a shock weapon is pretty good. And this weapon has good clip size, it gets good fire rate, you can get good pierce to pierce multiple enemies to apply more status across more enemies. It's just good. It's just a good weapon. Up next, the high explosive grenade. So the high explosive grenade is a grenade, what a surprise, that does damage. That's what it's supposed to do, is just do damage. I have a problem with that, though, is that it has the same problems that the other grenades have with the explosive delay. Even weirder is this weapon also has the same supportive overclocks that a lot of the other grenade weapons have. Right? It can destroy terrain, which is pretty good. There's two other ones, the red ones in particular, where you can drop a grenade every 10 seconds if you take damage. So basically, if you take damage, you drop a grenade in place, kind of like martyrdom, I guess. And that's fine, but you really shouldn't be taking damage. And the other one makes it so that grenade explosions apply fear to enemies where they'll run away from the grenade. Which is not something you actually really want most of the time. Fear is like enemies running away from the point of impact is not always good, but when it's delayed like it is with this one, it just doesn't feel good. This weapon, once again, if the DRG wiki is meant to be believed here and is nice and accurate, which I hope it is, I would feel so comfortable if this was nice and accurate. This weapon doesn't really get any other useful overclocks, which is kind of odd. It's basically a damage grenade that eventually becomes a CC tool, is the best way I can think about it, and it just doesn't feel great at either. It just, yeah, I'm not really feeling it. Up next, that is the Hurricane Rockets. I really like the Hurricane Rockets. Now, the main reason I like the Hurricane Rockets is it is one of the weapons that can essentially have constant damage application. If you get enough reload speed and or enough rockets in combination with your reload speed, this weapon is basically always firing. Which is pretty good, actually. The individual rockets do less damage than, say, other heavy weapons, in order to compensate for the fact that it shoots out a burst of rockets. But honestly, I think that's okay. It's just pretty good. Up next, the Impact Axe. The Impact Axe. So, thrown weapons are... not most thrown weapons. Just this one, to be quite honest. It's kind of funny. So the Impact Axe, much like the base game, throws the axe, leaves it in place, and then they come back to you after a while, as opposed to you having to walk over to them. However, the axes in this game, the way they affect their reload speed is you have to wait for the axe to come back to you before it, before you can throw out another set of axes, which is kind of weird. The good news is, the axes deal damage both going towards targets and coming back from targets, so it's not the worst. Even better, though, is the fact that the axe has 2 overclocks, where you can overclock it to do acid damage, or you can overclock it to do fire damage. And both of those are really, really good. This works even better with the newer overclocks that they made for the axe recently, actually. One of them makes your axe essentially have double size and deal way more damage. The other one makes you deal half damage but throws 3 axes. And these both work for both overclocks pretty damn well, honestly. If this was before they got that upgrade, I would have put it in B, but because of that, I think it's really good. I think it's a solid A. Up next, the Incendiary Grenades. See, this is my problem with the grenade weapons. Like, that, it's so good on paper. It's really good on paper. However, one thing I will give the Incendiary Grenade above some of these other ones is the fact that it has Gravitational Core. Gravitational Core is an overclock that vacuums enemies towards the grenade before it explodes. Meaning this one is a bit more consistent at applying its elemental status effect to enemies, so it suffers a little bit less from the grenade problem because of that. So I will put it in A. Because it is fighting the struggle of the grenade problem and doing so rather successfully, I feel. Where is it? There it is. Up next, the Krakatoa Sentinel Turrets. See, this is fun. Because now we get to talk about constructs. Like actual constructs and not just drones. Because drones are a bit weird for constructs. They don't behave like the other ones. How the construct weapons work in this game is you essentially have stacks of them. And as your reload speed builds, you build stacks of that weapon. And when you get enough reload speed to reload the weapon. It instead gives you a stack. When you stand still, you spend that stack to place the construct. Now this is really fucking ridiculous because it means if you get enough reload speed, you can essentially always have turrets and constructs ready. And because of that alone, most of these weapons are pretty fucking absurd. More than that, because even if that wasn't even... Like, on top of that already ridiculous fact, most of these just have pretty damn good effects. They have really useful effects. CC destruction, good damage, extra lifetime, leaving behind puddles of explosions when they're done, following you around if you prefer to have them follow you instead of being in place. So many of these constructs are just really, 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 really good. And this one's no exception. Now the real question is it S tier? See, I'm trying to, like, picture all the constructs in my head. Okay. I think the cracked toe turret is really, 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 really good. But it's not S tier. And I will know why later. I will explain later why it's not when we get to a construct that is S tier. Up next, I believe that one is, yeah, the Tactical Lead Burster. So this is a grenade, but it's not a normal grenade. It is essentially a bouncing Betty grenade from Borderlands. You throw the grenade, and as it's active, it will constantly shoot out a a spiral of bullets. Which is pretty good, honestly. I think it's pretty good. A funny thing is, this weapon has lower base damage than a lot of other grenades because it shoots bullets instead. And because of that, the cluster grenade overclock that splits grenades into 3 but makes them weaker doesn't actually affect this weapon as strongly as the other ones. So, is this A tier? I think I'm just barely gonna have to say no, but I do think it is good. Up next, the Leadstorm minigun. Oh boy, this is Gunner's starting weapon. And, See, I want to like this weapon. I really do, but I think this weapon is truly the only heavy weapon that suffers for being heavy. Because I don't feel like, unlike a lot of the other heavy weapons, it really makes up for the slower reload speed. Because it doesn't have enough damage. And it has a bit of a unique thing. Most of these weapons we've talked about so far the bullet weapons in particular, do not have essentially aiming. A lot of bullet weapons in this game just shoot towards whatever enemy is the closest, which is fine. This one doesn't do that. This weapon only shoots at enemies in front of you, which is not really great when it's your only weapon. This is a game where you're moving around a lot, and you're not necessarily facing the crowd, if that makes any sense. So it actually becomes pretty awkward to try and use this weapon. In harder difficulties, it's fine in lower hazard levels, but when you start to get to higher hazard levels, this weapon's flaws really start to become apparent, and you start to, like, it starts grating on you, quite frankly. Up next, the LMG gun platform turret. This is one engineer's starter weapons, and I think it is really good, just like the other turret. Again, I don't think it's S tier, but it is good. Do not get it twisted. Has all the same benefits of other constructs, where if you get enough reload speed, they will essentially just constantly shit out turrets, which is really good. These also have the benefit, like the other turret, of being able to mine away at walls, which is also really good. Its elements, I think, are holding it back, because it can be either shock or plasma, and those are okay. It's just okay. But the weapon overall is good. Good damage, good DPS, because again, they benefit from having higher reload speed. Good fire rate, good utility potential on top of that. It's just a solid weapon. Up next, that is the Lock 1 Smart Rifle. Yes, it is. Okay, this is a weapon where if you have other weapons, it's okay. This weapon essentially charges when enemies are near you, aims at enemies near you, and then fires off bullets at enemies near you. If there's only one enemy, that's good, because it will make the entire clip essentially go into that one enemy, and if it does that, it does pretty good damage, honestly. I like when it does that. But this is not a game where you're usually dealing with enemies one-on-one. And because of that, this weapon has a really high chance to just go at a bunch of enemies that are not your intended target, which is really annoying. It causes problems. Also, this weapon is one of the few weapons that is affected by terrain, specifically height. The bullets in this weapon can go over walls, but because they can go over walls trying to get towards targets, they can also just flat out go over targets because they're now too high to hit the target directly, which is really fucking awkward. Yeah, this is a weapon that's supplemental damage only feels great when you have other weapons with it. And I'm gonna be real, even then, I think I'd rather just grab something else. Up next, the M1000. So this is a sniper rifle. And that's a very good thing in a game like this. It has very good range, very high damage, decent clip size, benefits pretty well from reload speed, and also gets fire rate upgrades, so you can also benefit from that. Or you can benefit instead from one of its other overclocks, which is the Thick Boy. There's been a few other things that could benefit from this, most notably the shotguns. But this one is one where you feel especially good to have it because of the higher damage that it has. Thick Boy combines your entire mag into one magazine and just shoots one big fuck you strong ass pellet. And it's a really strong effect. Or, alternatively, if you don't want to do that, you can turn this thing into a fucking shotgun instead with sawed off and shoot multiple pellets at once. This thing does good damage, has good stats, has 2 overclocks that serve similar purposes but are both very effective at what they do, and it can even get fire overclock if you like, which both benefit from the previously mentioned overclocks. This is an easy S. Bow, bow, bow. Bow, bow, bow. Bow, bow, bow. Bow, bow, bow. Alrighty. Up next, the Nishanka Bolt Shark, aka the crossbow. So the crossbow in this game is quite interesting. What it does is it has a... When you shoot an arrow with it, it will alternate between shooting acid and electric arrows. And that's honestly pretty good. It can also, if you want, get overclocks that give it the other elements. So it can shoot acid, cryo, fire, and shock. Meaning this thing can actually be a surprisingly decent dot weapon. It has decent enough damage for that. Its fire rate isn't the greatest, but that's something you can improve. It has decent stats. It can also get increased knockback, which is really nice. I think it's just, it's pretty nice. I just think it's pretty nice. I don't think it's fantastic or anything, but it's a weapon that I don't mind seeing. It's pretty useful. Alrighty. Up next, I believe that one is... Let me get a double look here just to make sure. Yep, the Plasma Burster Grenade. So, you might be thinking, oh god, a grenade that's plasma? It probably sucks. You're not entirely correct. Because what this does is, this grenade basically works... I think I have to skip... Actually, no, I think this one's fine. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this song's fine. This grenade basically works like a rubberized grenade from Borderlands, where it will constantly bounce along the ground in order to hit enemies. Which is... surprisingly makes it better than a lot of other plasma weapons. By, like, a lot. By a lot, actually. Main reason being is its overclocks. It can get an overclock. It gets overclocks for cryo and electric. So, having this thing bounce through crowds, constantly freezing and or shocking enemies is pretty good, honestly. And it doesn't have a clip size problem like a lot of other plasma weapons have, because it's a grenade. So if you get enough reload speed, you're basically constantly throwing rubberized grenades at opponents to constantly apply shock and cryo, even if there's no walls around it to bounce off of. It's really surprisingly good. It's, I think, the best plasma weapon by far. It doesn't suffer from any of the standard problems that plasma weapons suffer by, and it doesn't suffer from the problems that a lot of the grenades suffer by. Huh? Kind of amazing how that works. I think it's pretty good. Alrighty, our next weapon. Where is it? Boop, there it is, the Seismic Repulsor. This is the best construct in the game, and it's not even close. So, what makes this construct better than other constructs? It CC's opponents. It CC's opponents, and it CC's them really good. These turrets constantly apply knockback to anything around them. And if you're standing still, because this is a construct, which means when you stand still, they'll spin around you, it means you constantly have knockback around you. Pretty much only elites are going to be able to get near you. This will keep everything else away from you. And if they get closer, because they think they can get closer to you, well, guess what? One of its best overclocks slows enemies down. And a funny thing about slowing enemies in this game is slowing down enemies essentially applies cryo without being cryo. If an enemy gets enough slow stacks, they will freeze solid. This is unquestionably, undeniably the best CC weapon in the game. It pushes them back, slows them down, freezes them solid. Pretty much anything near you. If you want, you can get the tank tracks for them to follow you around. If you want even more so, you can just not do that and have them constantly bonk away at you. It's kind of crazy, and on top of all that, it actually does good damage. It's easily the best construct. Up next, the Shard Diffractor. Okay, we have another plasma weapon. So, as I mentioned before, a big problem with plasma weapons that can get elements as overclocks, which is all of them, is that you can't build potency or status effect damage until you get the overclock. And I personally feel this is the weapon that suffers the most from that. This weapon does not have good damage. This weapon does not have good reload speed. This weapon really doesn't even have good application because of how it fires. It fires a tracer, and you will constantly shoot a laser towards that tracer that will pierce enemies and apply constant damage. Except, it doesn't really apply constant damage fast enough. It is a really slow constant damage, which is not good. On the bright side, you can get more beams, so you can essentially fire upwards of 5 beams. But if you do that, that means not taking the increased damage overclocks most of the time. And you really want that for the damage. And the elemental overclocks this weapon has access to is either you can slow enemies down, which is good. You can electrify enemies, which is also fine. And then you can apply burn to enemies, which is debatably the most ideal. This is essentially a weapon that heavily relies on what else you're building in order to move it towards an optimal way, and it doesn't really feel good either way. A big problem with build weapons like that is if they're not good at what they're doing beforehand, why not just take a dedicated weapon that can do what that weapon does, but better? And that's how I feel about this weapon. next, that right there, that funny looking boy is... Where is it? Here it is. The Shredder Swarm Grenade. So this thing is quite fun. I like this thing. Basically, this is a grenade that when it lands, spits out a bajillion T drones, and those drones will fly over, or fly towards enemies and constantly deal damage. Imagine it basically as a raw version of the elemental drones. It will basically just fly and deal constant damage towards enemies who are close enough to it. And I like that. It's very fun, it's very silly. Its damage isn't initially great, but I think it's neat, honestly. Apparently before, this weapon used to be like super buggy and used to like not function all that well. I'm pretty sure I have to skip this one, unfortunately. Yeah, its damage is not the best initially. However, this is another weapon that, because it has such lower base damage, the cluster grenade overclock actually doesn't hurt it as much. So you can basically get triple drones for no problem, on top of getting extra drones from your overclocks. I like it. I'm gonna be reasonable and not put it any higher than B, because I know it's not any higher than B, but I do like this weapon. Up next, the Corrosive Sludge Pump. This is the best weapon at applying acid. Acid is the best status in the game, therefore this is one of the best weapons in the game. It shoots a constant stream of acid in a circle around you, much like the flamethrower, but with acid instead. It can also get multiple beams, and most recently, they added overclocks that make it apply more statuses. They made it so that one of the overclocks can give you both fire and shock dot damage, on top of the acid damage that this is doing. And I gotta say, that is fucking absurd. This weapon is great. If this is like a damn... Pretty much everything in S tier is like, if you see it, grab it immediately. Like, I don't want to call them core weapons necessarily, but that's what I like to think of them as. If you see something like one of those, you take it. You take it and you never look back, because everything behind you and in front of you will be fucking dead, so there's no real reason to look back. And this is no exception. It is fantastic. Up next, that I believe is the Subata 120. Yes, it is. This is the Base Driller's starting pistol. And I gotta say, it's pretty damn good. So a good thing about this weapon, as opposed to other weapons that fire in fixed patterns, is this weapon only shoots backwards. Which might sound weird, but believe it or not, it shooting backwards is better than it shooting forwards, especially for the class it belongs to, because this is the Driller's starting weapon for the base class. And the Driller is drilling, and constantly drilling, through terrain. And because the Driller is constantly digging through terrain, enemies are coming from behind you more than they're coming from in front of you. So you're actually always able to consistently apply damage to enemies with this weapon. And as you're running around and kiting and dodging enemies, it's even better, honestly. It is quite good. Even better is its overclocks. One of the reasons I like the Driller so much is the Driller is essentially the game's best damage over time character. And you can really tell that with the overclocks that is accessible to them. Especially on this weapon, because the weapon's overclocks include fire rate increases for applying status more, reload speed for applying status more, potency, and of course, elements. It can get either fire or acid damage. And on top of that, its best overclock, debatably, is the double barrel, which makes it shoot basically 2 bullets instead of 1. to shoot two parallel bullets right next to each other. They're just good old chummy chum friends that fly together with each other really well. And that makes applying status effects even better, because the more you hit enemies, the more stacks you build. This weapon's really good. This weapon's really, really good. Up next, the Voltaic Stun Sweeper. Alrighty, so I've done some shit talking on base electric weapons for a bit. And for the next couple of weapons is a time where I can't really do that anymore, because the next couple of weapons are actually pretty good. The Voltaic Stun Sweeper is a boomerang. And the good thing about that is boomerangs, they come back to you. Meaning, you can throw this boomerang, have it hit an enemy, come back to you, hit an enemy again, and you're basically applying 2 stacks of shock to an enemy. Meaning, this weapon is actually pretty good at building shock stacks that I can't speak. Which is really nice. That's really, really nice, actually. The overclocks are also quite fun in different ways. One of the best ones being the magnet, where your boomerangs will now grab items. All items that they fly by. They'll grab experience, they'll grab materials, they'll grab everything. And I gotta say, that's pretty damn helpful. In a game where you're constantly moving and you don't necessarily have the time to constantly grab your experience after killing enemies because it's more important to keep moving, having a weapon that can grab stuff for you is actually pretty useful. On top of that, if you want it to not be a traditional boomerang and fly towards enemies and instead want it to cover you, there's a overclock that changes it so that it flies in a spiral instead. And that one's also pretty good. It essentially and a fun thing with that, if you're using magnet, is that it basically makes your pickup radius way bigger. And that's always useful. Pickup radius is a very handy stat in games like this, because it means you move into less dangerous positions in order to grab experience, which is quite important. On top of that, even more so, one of the overclocks just lets you throw another boomerang in the opposite direction. If you're using standard boomerangs, that's one in front and that's one in back. If you're using spiral, that means you're basically throwing more boomerangs. You're throwing one in the opposite direction and hitting dudes more, hitting guys faster. If you get enough reload speed with this weapon, you're constantly throwing out these shock boomerangs that are just hitting a whole bunch of stuff. It is pretty damn good. And I have pretty much nothing but positive things to say about it. And you know what? I feel very much the same way about our next weapon. The Voltaic Shock Fence. Once again, it's shock, which is normally a bad thing. However, instead of being like a bullet weapon or having some weird application, it is essentially a build-a-gate. If you want to, you can stand still and deploy these things around you like most other constructs. But a good thing about this one is, if you're constantly moving, you will chain electricity to all of the other stun fences you have deployed. Meaning you could just create a gigantic line of shock application towards enemies. And having a constant damage source that applies a weakness to an enemy that goes behind you in a game where you're constantly moving is really good. This weapon also can get coolant leak, which makes it so that it slows down nearby enemies, which is also really good. So constantly slowing down enemies that are constantly following you is pretty useful. Bizarrely enough, this one can also get magnet as a power-up, which is not needed, but it is pretty interesting. One of the best things to me, though, is they recently added an overclock that makes it so that you can deploy all charges of the stun fence around you in essentially a big old circle around you. And if you do that, this thing does obscene single target damage. Or group target damage if there's enough dumb things to follow you into that big fucking circle. It's quite fun, honestly. It's pretty good. Up next, Stubby. Stubby is a electric SMG, and I think it's actually pretty good at that job. You can basically constantly hit targets, which means applying electric stacks is a lot easier with this weapon than it is other weapons, especially because of how fast it shoots, which is very handy. It does still have that lower damage. This isn't necessarily a main damage, it is a support weapon, but I think it's a pretty good support weapon. It's one of the better things at applying constant shock to things. And don't get it twisted, if you want to, you can actually absolutely build into more damage. If this is your only shock weapon, you're not too upset. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I don't think it's necessarily as good as the other two we've seen, but only by barely. Just barely. But it is good. And now my streak of talking positively about shock weapons ends, cause... So this is the bug taser. It's really bad at tasing bugs. So, this weapon hits an enemy and then bounces a chain of electricity to multiple enemies. Now, the problem with that is it just doesn't have the numbers for it to be useful. On paper, this weapon should be fine, but you need basically all of your overclocks to be extra beams in order to hit as many targets as possible. And if you can't do that, this weapon just doesn't apply shock as efficiently as other weapons. It doesn't have good damage. It's not really good at applying the thing it applies. It's just not there. It's simply just not there. Up next, the Acid Drone. It has all the benefits of all the other drones we've spoken about, except it does acid damage instead of all the other types. I think that should be self-explanatory. Constant application of the best status in the game is pretty good. It's pretty good. Up next, that is the Zhukov. Ah, wrong thingy. I always do that. Gotta stop that. Bam. Yeah. That is the Zhukov. So the Zhukov fires in diagonal directions, which is different than the burst gun. The burst gun fires like north, south, east, west. This one shoots in the offsets. It shoots pretty fast. It can also get spiral, just like the burst gun, so that's not too bad. It can get shock and cryo, so this is very clearly meant to be a starter weapon that goes into a more support role. And honestly, it's pretty good at it. It is pretty good at it. I don't really have any complaints with this weapon. Has decent clip size. You can get more clip size. It's a light weapon, so its reload speed is actually pretty good. Its damage isn't great. But again, it builds into other... It's meant to be a more support weapon, and it's It's good at it. Like, I don't really have much to say. It's good at being a good support weapon. Up next, that boy right there, that is the other shotgun. Where is it? There it is, the Warthog. That is the engineer's starting weapon for the Tinkerer class. And I am kind of indifferent to this weapon. So a big problem I have with this weapon as opposed to the double barrel is the double barrel has just, I think, better synergy with the stuff that it wants to do. The Warthog has more clip size, more fire rate, but less damage. And a big problem with the Warthog as opposed to double barrel is the Warthog has electric and plasma as elemental overclocks as opposed to electric and cryo. And making your weapon plasma doesn't really have any benefit. And that wouldn't be too bad of a thing, except much like the minigun, this weapon can only fire in front of you. Now, there's an overclock that lets you also fire behind you if you want to, but for most of the shotguns, firing more pellets is typically the better option. This one's not really any different. I think this weapon's just fine. And finally, our last weapon, the Colette Wave Cooker. This thing is absurd. So, where the flamethrower is really good at applying high amounts of dots to a singular enemy in a line, this thing is good at applying dots in a giant fucking cone that constantly spins around you. And I do mean a big cone. And I mean a big cone because this thing has overclocks that can increase the size of the cone. This thing can burn so many enemies so efficiently. It's crazy. And if that's not enough, it can even apply slow. One of the overclocks lets this weapon apply slow to enemies, meaning this thing can be turned into one of the grossest CC weapons in the game. It does great damage to multiple enemies and slows them down. But guess what? It can even be a good single target weapon, because one of the overclocks shrinks the size of the cone to essentially a small line, but makes it target the enemy with the highest HP. And guess what? On top of that, guess what? You can counteract the shrinking of the cone size with the cone size upgrade overclock. This thing's dumb. I love it. So yeah, that's how I feel about most of the weapons. I personally feel that most of the weapons in S tier are like just fantastic, right? They're weapons that when you see them, you're like, damn, I feel great about seeing that. In A tier, you're like, alrighty, I'm pretty good. I like seeing this. This makes me feel comfortable. In there we go. And B tier, you're like, you know, I can make this work, right? A B tier weapon is like you know, I can do stuff with this, right? You know, there's like it fills good spots in your build, right? C tier is like, you know, this weapon's just not really good enough to want to pick that often. There's just things that I feel can be better, and there's truly only one D tier weapon, which is the fucking experimental plasma charger. I genuinely feel like that weapon is like actually useless. I do not think it is useful in any scenario. That is how I personally feel about the weapons. Up next, the classes, because yes, this game has classes. All these weapons, you just go to multiple things, because they do multiple things, and go to multiple characters. This isn't a really weird order, but that's fine. So, up first is, for some reason right there, Strong Armed. Strong Armed is the last driller class you unlock. It gives a range bonus to all of your weapons, and has access to all of the thrown weapons. So things like the grenades, the axe, which is its starting weapon, and the Voltaic Stun Sweeper. Man, this one's weird. So, as mentioned a decent amount of times, the thrown weapons in this game are not really the best most of the time. And because of that, I feel like this class tends to struggle more often than not. It has the axe as its starting weapon, which is really good. The problem is basically the other weapons you get. I just don't think they're as good as all the other things. I don't think they're as good as the axe. The sweeper is good, right? And if you get, you know, lucky enough with, like, say, the plasma burster for CCing, or maybe the shredder to, like, go into damage, it's just a weird class, to be quite honest, because the weapons it has access to just aren't great. Up next, Demolitionist. Demolitionist is the class mod for the final class mod for the Engineer. It gives you 20% explosion radius and 20% reload speed for all explosive weapons. This includes weapons like the grenade launcher, which is the starting weapon, the high explosive grenade, the impact axe, pretty much all the thrown grenades, and the hurricane guided rocket system. And I feel pretty much the same with this weapon, or with this class, that I do with the Strong Armed, but just a little less. I feel like there's enough of the explosive weapons that can be utilized in decent ways that pushes this one up just slightly over Strong Armed. Up next, Classic Scout. Classic Scout has 10% movement speed and 20% max HP. You know, it's really weird that I don't see the increases from having it mastered on Hazard 5. Hold on, matter of fact, let me go grab that. The wiki doesn't have those listed for some reason. Let me double check real quick. I'm just gonna double check my metrics. Okay, my metrics are good. Let's hope my PC doesn't explode as I start the game. It shouldn't, but yeah, I'm gonna start the game up real quick so we can just see those metrics, because it will help a bit. Alrighty, there we go. Alrighty, my metrics are fine. Alright, good. Alrighty, so really quick. Strong Arm's mastery bonuses give it more HP and more damage. The HP is additive, of course, and the damage is multiplicative, which is actually pretty good. Increase to multiplicative damage is always nice to see. Demolition gains extra experience gain and damage, both multiplicative. Again, pretty solid. Classic Scout gains HP and critical hit chance, which is also pretty good. Like, those are all pretty solid, so no complaints. So yeah, Classic Scout has move speed, HP, and crit chance increase, or yeah, critical hits increase, which is pretty good. It starts with a deep core launcher and has access to all of Scout's weapons, which is, I think, really good. Scout is a really good class in this game. Which is kind of funny, because I always felt Scout was underwhelming in base game, but I don't feel that way here. On the other hand, Scout's other class, Recon, I do feel is underwhelming. So Recon has access to all of the light weapons. It has a 25% dodge chance, as well as 35% movement speed, 35% reload speed, but only when you dodge, on top of having a mastery bonus of 5% dodge chance and 10% damage, which is not really great, I'm gonna be real. So the problem is light weapons are fine, the damage is nice, dodge chance is just a weird stat that you don't really want most of the time. That's what it comes down to. And the light weapons are... they're fine, right? You've got the Zukov, the Subata, the Plasma Charger, which fucking sucks, but you have Stubby and the Burst Fire Gun. So, the most ideal thing, most likely, is to just build full into crit. And it's alright. It is alright. Actually, matter of fact, hold on. Yeah, it's alright. Juggernaut. Juggernaut is the second class for the Gunner. This one has 10% armor, 50% maximum HP. Unfortunately, reduces your weapon's range by 50%. And gives you a 10% damage bonus for 10 seconds if you take damage with stacks. So you can get up to 50% damage. Is the app. Phone magic? Why are you phone magicking? Let's see. So yeah, real quick, I'm going to see if that boost is additive or multiplicative. Juggernaut Mastery bonuses gives you more armor and life regen, which is okay. Like, yeah, this is definitely the tankiest class in the game. The damage bonus is multiplicative. So, it's fine. The big problem, though, you really do not want to be taking hits in this game. So, there's the one relic that makes you do extra damage based on lost amounts of health. And that relic's good and all, but it's not really something you want to build around. You're living on the edge, and living on the edge is not really the best thing you want to be doing. I still think this class is fine, though. Alrighty, Foreman. Foreman is Driller's starting class. This class has access to all of the Driller's weapons. You get a 2% mining speed for 2 seconds. For each time you're mining, that stacks up to 25 times. Making this the absolute best class at mining shit. Who would have guessed? That mining speed is multiplicative, by the way, which is crazy. It's really good. So you essentially get 50% multiplicative mining speed on top of a mastery bonus of 30% or 30 HP, not 30%, and 10% damage. Foreman is really good. The weapons it has access to is good. Its unique trait is good. Its mastery is good. It's just good. Weapon Specialist. The base the base class mod for the Gunner has access to the Leadstorm minigun, and after firing 100 shots from all your weapons, you will fire 8 high damage projectiles around you. Fun fact, Bosco's shots will count towards that. Has a mastery bonus of 10 armor and 10% multiplicative damage. I also feel that this class is just fine, and I'm gonna be real, it's mostly just because of the starting weapon. If it wasn't the minigun, I think I would appreciate it just a bit more. It makes sense why it's the minigun. The minigun certainly coincides with its passive the most. But the passive is just kind of okay. That's really how I feel about it. It's an okay passive. Up next, Interrogator. This is Driller's second class. This class gains 100% status effect damage in exchange multiplicatively. In exchange for 30% loss on direct damage, also multiplicatively. The upgrades for mastery are 15% potency and 15% lifetime, both multiplicative. And this class has access to all fire and acid weapons. Do I need to explain that? Do I really need to explain why this is the best dot class in the game? Having access to the 2 elements that make dot classes absurd. And all of the weapons that do it at that. As well as access to a lot of Driller's other weapons that are also phenomenal, like the cryo cannon as an example. Yeah. Self-explanatory, I think. Up next, Sharpshooter. Boop. And boop. There we go. Sharpshooter is Scout's final class. It will boop, boop. Boop. There we go. It gets 15% additive critical hit chance and 15% critical hit damage by default. Mastery bonus gives you 30 HP and another 20% additive critical hit damage, and it starts with the M1000. I think it is pretty self-explanatory. This is Scout's best class. And is the best crit class in the game. No funny business as far as weapon accessibility. It simply has all of Scout's weapons. Which is good, because Scout actually has a good weapon suite. Good fast ones, good slow ones, including the one you start with. As well as good application for the statuses that crit builds want. It has a lot of good cryo and good shock weapons. So, Sharpshooter is pretty solid. Up next, Heavy Gunner. This is Gunner's final class. You lose 10% movement speed, but in exchange, you gain 25% weapon range and 25% reload speed for heavy weapons, all of those being multiplicative. The mastery bonus gives you 10 armor and 15% fire rate. Fire rate being multiplicative, which is quite nice. As well as access to all heavy weapons. And I gotta say, the fact that this gives you access to all heavy weapons is pretty good. It means you can sufficiently build either for dot damage, because you have access to the flamethrower and the sludge pump, as well as like the weirdo dot weapons like the shard diffractor, or also just go into just standard damage, because this class's starting weapon is the Thunderhead. So yeah, starting with the best weapon in the game is pretty good. Who would have guessed? I'm contemplating S. But my thing is, I just don't think it's as absurd as the other two, even though it does start with the best weapon in the game. But it is really good. You know what? I'll give it up to it. And our final two classes are the Engineer's other classes. Its starting class, the Maintenance Worker. The Maintenance Worker has... Let's pull it up in-game as well. Let's make my life easier. There we go. Has access to all construct weapons, which is really nice, as well as a 10% damage and 10% reload speed increase to all constructs multiplicatively, as well as a mastery bonus for multiplicative experience gain and lifetime, which is really good. Now, constructs can be quite fun. A big thing, though, is because of the wide variety on constructs, you gotta be a bit more careful with the constructs you choose throughout the game as it goes along. This class starting with the LMG gun platform is quite nice. However, this brings up a really interesting point that I think would be neat for this game in particular. It would be really nice if you could change the starting weapon you have access to in this game. Nope. We're gonna lower that a ton. But yeah, it would be nice if you could change the starting weapon you have access to in order to just more finely specialize certain things. The main reason I feel that way with this game in particular is because of the elemental overclocks. I think being able to choose to start with an elemental weapon to more finely focus into an elemental build just will feel a lot better. But I do think this class is good. And our final class is Tinkerer. This is Scout's second class. This class has an extra... What are you phone magicking for now, phone magic? Stop it. This class has a 10% experience gain. That's it. That's it. Just 10% experience. It has access to all of Scout's weapon, or all of Engineer's weapons. My apologies. It starts with the Warthog. Its mastery bonus is another 10% multiplicative experience gain and 25% pickup radius. Now, it does do something else. And believe it or not, I think that something else is actually a bit more detrimental than positive. This weapon, this class has all of its weapons start at level 3. As opposed to level 1. And I think that's actually not good, because it means you're not getting those initial earlier stats for those weapons. And that is simply not good feeling. Because of that, this weapon is actually behind a lot of other classes damage-wise. The idea is that you're trying to rush into your overclocks faster, but you're doing so at the sacrifice of early game stats, which is not really ideal. It's like getting the rarity increase upgrades. Only difference being, like, when those pop up, they're optional. This one's not optional. So, all of your weapons are essentially playing from behind. And I'm gonna be real, it feels really bad, actually. Like, genuinely, it feels that bad. I feel like this weapon suffers a lot from what the gimmick of the class is. And I don't really feel that way with the other classes for any of the same reasons. Like, the reason Strong-Armed isn't as good is because the throwable weapons aren't as good, right? The reason Recon isn't as good is because Dodge Chance is just kind of awkward and not something you should particularly be building around. Tinkerer is the only one I truly feel that is actively handicapping yourself. you get more experience, and theoretically you're supposed to get to your overclock faster, right? The whole idea is that you get to your endpoint faster, but a key detail about rushing your endpoints in games like this is that you should virtually never do it. In this game, it's fine to do once or twice, but you really need those damage increases. You need those reload speed increases. You need those fire rate increases. For this class, that's just not an option. It takes away the option of rushing and forces it upon you and forces you to play from the back foot the whole time. The main reason that this is so bad is a concept referred to as opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is basically when you're choosing a choice and what you're giving up in order to get that choice. Experience increases in games like this are terrible because of opportunity costs. So the fact that that is basically this only class's benefit means it is bad because of it. Because if your only benefit is increased experience gain, that means you're not getting increased damage, you're not getting increased health, you're not getting increased pickup radius, well, normally. You're not getting increased even dodge chance, or damage, or critical hit chance, or critical hit rate, or like damage. Like, it's just, you have none of that. You just have more experience. And if you can't kill things fast enough, that experience means nothing. Never, and I do truly mean never, take experience increases in these games. It is fine if it is a passive increase that you have to not contribute to, like the pre-game increases to your stats that you use your minerals for. In that case, it's fine, because it's unconditional. The condition for increased experience in-game is opportunity cost. And that opportunity cost will fuck you. Never take increased experience unless there's a good, tangible benefit to doing so. And in most games, there simply isn't. Never take increased experience. With that being said, that is the tier list. We will download the tier list. Boop. We'll place that in my good old folder of stuff and things. Bam. There we go. Yay. I forgot to mention, none of this is ordered. I don't necessarily feel that it should or shouldn't be ordered when I do this. I think everything that is in a particular tier is virtually just as good as everything else. That's why it is in the same tier. But yeah, this is the tier list. Like I said, S weapons, fantastic. Pretty much always grabs. A weapons, really, really good. You're always like excited to see those. B weapons, pretty decent. Good at filling certain holes in builds. C tier, there's just a few things off or wrong with them that just causes them to not work as efficiently as others. And D tier, I truly feel, are just bad and should just not be chosen. With that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you come around for next time. Next time being Sunday, where we will actually not do SpongeBob. We will actually get our next RPG started. Because a lot of people are asking me to get to Jack 2 as soon as possible. And an RPG is going to be long. So you know what? I will oblige. I will continue playing SpongeBob in private, which I don't mind because I quite enjoy the game. And we will get to a very interesting Pokemon ROM hack as our RPG. Thank you. I'm going to make myself food and lay down now. Yeah.